To be let go in the experience, free of trying to make sense of it, is how we learn the most. It comes back to not always having the answer all the time. Sometimes the answer comes to you later. Sometimes the answer is not the point. Sometimes the experience is the point, and that leads the way, that builds the foundation for you to understand the answer when it's presented to you. Hey friends, my name is Gabby Rosalie, and this is the Crucial Conversations podcast, a platform dedicated to self-fulfillment and breaking the cycle of wasted potential. Using the tools of perspective, knowledge, wisdom, and awareness, I, with the help of qualified expert guests, share free insight and proven strategies that lead to all forms of success. If you are ready to start investing in yourself and living the life of your dreams, because I promise it is possible for all of us, you came to the right place. Together, we will help each other level up and have the crucial conversations necessary to do so. Well, if it isn't the Crucial Conversations podcast back and better than ever for another season, this time around coming from an increased presence of authenticity and service based out of heart and, once again, I reiterate, authenticity. Now, I'm not going to talk in a British accent for the remainder of this episode, but that just kind of came out of me. I don't know where that came from. But I have realized that on this platform, I need to get back to shooting the shit. I need to get back to just talking without a really refined agenda, because I had a lot of time to myself in Costa Rica, and we're going to talk a little bit about the realizations that I had while I was there, some of the differences that I am noticing present themselves now that I'm back stateside. And basically, I am starting a new season on this podcast, and I am kind of rebranding my business as well to really, really be in alignment with who I am and my values and my authentic self. I think that in this industry that I'm in self-improvement and coaching and mentorship, I get really, really caught up in the productivity that is really necessary, and it's really motivating and inspiring. But I started this podcast so that I could come on here and I could have conversations that allowed me to reflect the best components to my personality. And although leadership and development is one of them, sometimes just hopping on and shooting the shit, like I said, is one of my favorite things to do, and it's entertaining. I like it, and a lot of my friends like it, and so that's what we're going to get back to. So we're going to have a conversation about my time in Costa Rica and some of the things that I experienced. And again, I'm showing up. I am showing up transparent. I'm showing up silly. I'm showing up real. And the first thing that I have learned, actually I'm outside right now, like I said. And actually, I don't know if I said that, but I'll reiterate if I didn't. I am outside right now. So if you hear a little bit of wind, I'm going to try to edit that out. But if not, reminder that nature is good. One of the biggest differences that I've noticed being home here in the States is the pace. The pace of life here is so much faster. It's so much busier. Things are done in so much more of a rush. And when I was in Costa Rica, a little bit of background, I was doing a volunteer exchange. I was working and volunteering on a permaculture farm in the mountains of Grecia, Costa Rica, about an hour and a half or so out of San Jose. And we were pretty off the grid. Like, we went into town maybe once every, 2 weeks, and that would be if I went with my host's girlfriend to go get groceries or run an errand or whatever. I had a lot of time to myself. I had a lot of time with the animals. I had a lot of time with the nature. And I had a lot of time sitting around doing absolutely nothing. And the crazy thing that I realized is that I am my own best friend and my own worst enemy. I create stress for myself no matter what my environment looks like. And that is a big thing that I had to come to terms with while I was there, was that if I could not relax there in the beautiful mountains, the property was stunning, just absolutely beautiful. And it was removed. I was unplugged from the matrix. I had nothing to focus on but my tasks of the day. And it was beautiful. But I found myself stressing myself out about using that time, every minute of that time, wisely. And my definition of using my time wisely has shifted since I've experienced that and been home and really integrated all the things that I experienced. But I was constantly stressing myself out about coulda, shoulda, woulda. You should be focusing on your business. You should be focusing on this project. You should be researching this so that when you go back to the States, you're prepared for this and blah, 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 blah. Now that I'm back in the States, I realize that hyper-productive state of being that I occupied for so long prior to my time in Costa Rica is rock hard engraved into my brain, and it has been a process to break it down and build it up in a healthy manner. Because there is a healthy level of productivity that I appreciate about myself and my personality, but sometimes it leads to my own demise. Now that I'm back, there is so much to do, so many people to see, so much going on, so many activities to participate in, always driving from one place to another and making sure that I'm doing this before I do this and making sure that I am only there for this long because I have to get to the next thing and blah, 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 blah. When I was in Costa Rica, it just wasn't like that. And even though I had a lot of downtime, I still found myself in my own head creating stress for myself. And when I was there, I had an opportunity to really, really connect with myself and with other people. And it hit me the other day. My mom had made a meal for my family to eat, and I was in a rush to get to the next thing. And I sat down and I was trying to eat my food quickly, and I was, kind of creating this rush of a meal that my mother had taken her sweet time to prepare for us. And I was ready to go after 5-10 minutes. And I was like, okay, girl, you have to A, freaking relax, and B, be present. When I was in Costa Rica, we would have lunch together every day. We would cook together, we would eat together, and we'd clean up together. And we would be sitting down for upwards of an hour each time that we shared a meal together. We would go out to eat, we would go out for a coffee, and we might end up sitting down for 3 hours, just shooting the shit. There that phrase comes back again. It's one of my favorite things to do, man. Shoot the shit. Not a care in the world where the conversation is going. We are just here and we're talking. We're yapping. It's fun to yap every now and then. And I sat down after I had almost gotten up, after 10 minutes of shared time with my family, who I love with my whole entire heart. And I thought to myself, what are you in a rush to go do? And I am a really big advocate for being present, but it's so funny how often I fall into my habits of hyperproductivity, of feeling like I need to do a million things and get to the next thing. So it's a really, really big thing that I've noticed in Western culture is just the busyness. And what I am trying to do is integrate the slow-paced lifestyle to a certain degree now that I'm home again, and I'm finding it relatively difficult. But I'm having this conversation because I feel like a lot of you guys can relate, especially if you've experienced a different culture or a different lifestyle that is characterized by a little bit of a slower pace. And as much as I love the slow pace, I also do like a degree of activity and a certain amount of quote unquote busyness. So now that I'm back home, I'm kind of finding my balance. And although it's pressing me now that I'm home and seeing how rushed everything and everyone is, I am realizing that there's good parts to that and there's not so great parts to that. And like I said, my biggest realization while I was there was that if I couldn't relax here, you can't relax anywhere. So I'm trying to cultivate more time for presence now that I'm back home and really, really realizing that the environment and the situation, the job, etc., is not the problem. And it's, let's be quite frank here, I'm the problem. The way that I think about things is the problem. My desire to always be productive is the problem. So I came face to face with that. And on this podcast, I want to make sure that I am not showing up like any other person who's going to tell you to do X, Y, and Z to be a better version of yourself and always go out and do this. And I reference that often. But I'm being real from now on. And I want to be a human being. And I am all about accessing your full potential to a degree that you incorporate genuine relationship with self and others, not always accomplishing things. I also realized that life is just not that deep. Life is not that deep. All of the stress that I created for myself out there because I really, really wanted to be wise about the way I was using my time, it actually robbed me of appreciating that experience that I had created for myself and dreamed about for so long. Because my mind was elsewhere. And don't get me wrong, I really, really worked on this while I was out there, and I was super intentional about being present because I noticed myself falling into these patterns. And so I think that I cured that part of myself to a certain degree, but I still struggle with it. And it's now that I'm home, it's really hit me like a freaking truck. But life is not that deep, man. There are going to be things and challenges that you're going to come across that are going to require a lot of energy and effort in the moment. It might seem like the end of the world or, the sky is falling. But there are so many things that we stress ourselves out about that if we got a note in the mail from a doctor that said you have cancer, you're dying in 2 weeks, would not even cross our minds ever again. And so I am trying to remind myself that a lot of the things that we stress out about or the stress that we create for ourselves is simply that, stress that we have created for ourselves. It's not a matter of life and death, until it is, but 99% of the time, it's not that deep. Another thing that I have known but really came face to face with while I was there is that simplicity breeds a lot of peace for me and many others. Too many things leads to a lot of unnecessary responsibilities and stressors. And like I said, we're going to run into challenges. We're going to run into stress every now and then because we're living in this reality here on this earth plane right now. And so, yeah, we do have responsibilities. But in the things that we feel are so important to achieve and maintain, we often find ourselves in a place of increased responsibility to a point that it might rob us of time and energy that we can invest into things that matter a whole lot more. And I'm just going to give an example because this is a double-edged sword. For example, I have a beautiful, beautiful blessing at my fingertips right now living at home with my parents. And we have a nice home, and it's quite honestly, it's a house that's a bit too big. And there is so much responsibility that goes along with a big-ass house. Like, my God, it is never ending. Talk about always having something to check off on the to-do list. This broke. This needs fixing. This needs to be cleaned. We need to take this in for repair. We got to call this trade guy. And I mean, if we can get him to come, right, on time. But there's so much responsibility in possessions. And I've realized that the less that we have, the less that we have to worry about. And so I think that it's very important to pick and choose wisely what kind of responsibilities you want to take on. And that is directly correlated to the types of things that you want to achieve and the types of materials that you want to possess. So I'm kind of stepping into my simplistic era. I've always been a relative simplist or what would you call it? Minimalist. Yeah, a minimalist. But I really would like to step into that and embody that a little bit more because I realize that in releasing possessions and unnecessary responsibilities, I cultivate a lot more peace for myself. Another thing I've realized, not every day is going to be a good one. And there is no need to reevaluate your life on a bad day. My dad used to always tell me exactly that, verbatim. Don't reevaluate your life on a bad day. I experienced a lot of emotional roller coasters while I was there. There was a lot of identity and purpose kind of questioning that I had going on. And I would go through hard times where I was like, who am I and what am I doing? What is my path? Where am I at on my path? Who am I and how am I showing up? And when I was in those times where I would forget my purpose and question my mission, I was on the downside of that roller coaster. But I have realized that those days are very, very important, and they don't even have to mean anything, but I really, really have to develop and continue to develop the mentality that you cannot reevaluate your life on a bad day. You're going to have bad days where you question who you are and what you're doing and your blueprint, but that cannot enable you to abandon the blueprint. I talk about challenges. We all face them. But the last thing that you want to do is get into such a volatile state of being that you are constantly questioning who you are and what you're doing based on your emotions. I think that connecting to your emotions is very, very important. But when you are making decisions you have to understand that your emotions are going to try to cloud your judgment. And your mind is going to try to intellectualize and analyze things and always try to come up with answers. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And sometimes that looks like having a bad day. Sometimes that looks like stepping into the unknown and not really knowing what your place is in it. And I always talk about connecting with yourself and your values and your strengths, because once you do that, you know what you bring to the table. And just because you might not have a seat at every table does not mean that what you bring to the table does not have inherent value. That is something that I have had to continue to preach to myself, especially on my bad days when I would question myself, my purpose, my path, blah, 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 blah. I've also realized that my emotional baseline needs to be recalibrated. When I was in Costa Rica, there were days I was super up and there were days that I was super down mentally. And so interesting that I was even able to be super down in such a beautiful environment. But I echo that realization that I'm my own best friend and my own worst enemy. And the environment is not what is causing me stress, is not what is causing me anxiety or to question myself. It's me. It's my mind. And I have this thing where I intellectualize everything. I try to hyperanalyze everything. And I finally began to remove myself from always having to have an answer. I started it while I was in Costa Rica, and I'm really, really trying to maintain that now that I've been home. And it's been tough because now that I'm home, it's almost like I'm back to quote unquote real life. But I need to get myself out of that mentality because every part of my life is real life. And the life that I lived in Costa Rica was just as real, if not significantly more real, because I was very, very connected with my community and myself and nature and everything like that. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. Now that I've been home, it's a little bit harder for me to feel that at ease, if that makes sense. So I've been a bit up and down since I've been home. You know, I dove headfirst back into business, making money, going to the gym, seeing friends, sailing, helping around the house, personal projects, etc. And for the most part, I love it. However, the stability of my mental health is suffering a little bit. It's like a grand pendulum that I need to get a grip on. So I've said this before in some of my episodes, and I don't know if you guys can relate, but the mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. So now that I am coming at you guys from this authentic place and I'm just talking, I realize that being in my mind is sometimes the best place to be and oftentimes it's the worst place to be. So how do we get ourselves out of our minds and stop this need, this feeling that we always have to have control or that we always have to have an answer? And my own answer to that question for myself that I feel like I uncovered and constantly have to remind myself is that we have to trust. I say it all the time, but I need to really, really start living it fundamentally and routinely. We need to trust the universe. We need to trust God, and we need to learn a lot from the nature and the ecosystems that surround us that have support in ways and from sources that don't require their effort. We need to trust, and we need to be sound in that we're not going to have all the answers all the time, and sometimes that is the best place to be. Because there is a higher power out there that is taking care of us in a way that we cannot quite take care of ourselves. And I think it's a little bit narcissistic to feel like your answers are always the best ones. So sometimes being in the unknown and opening yourself up to receiving answers from other people or other situations or experiences that are going to light a light bulb off in your brain and really being open to that because you haven't anchored yourself to an answer that you intellectualized is the most ripe position to be in to take aligned action. And sometimes it's not even about action. Sometimes it's just about getting yourself into a space where you are open to receive. You're open to receive the fruit that the tree of life bears. I've also learned that although everyone is a mirror, you cannot get caught up in psychoanalyzing everyone and everything to the point of forgetting to connect with the present moment free of intellectual interpretation. The beauty of connection and with life itself is in the complete embodiment of what is. You will have all of the time in the world to make sense of it later. And I'm still learning to put this one into practice. Again, as I am having these revelations, I'm learning these lessons, and now I am in the integration stage. And this is a conscious effort all of the time. Like, I got into this pattern of always being hyper aware of how I'm showing up and how other people are showing up, and analyzing those connections and looking at everyone like a mirror. Like, what are the good things that I see in them that I also see in myself? What are the things that they're mirroring back to me that are the parts of my personality that I don't want to continue to nurture? Blah, 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 blah. And that's all really, really great. But sometimes that would rob me from authentic connection because I was always in this analyzation standpoint. And so I do believe that the beauty of connection, like I said, with life, with other people, is just the complete embodiment of whatever experience it is that you are immersed in at that moment. You can analyze it later. And sometimes that conversation that you're having with someone, or that experience that you're having, whether you're partaking in a hobby or a creative pursuit, that can be a part of the process. But I do believe that allowing yourself to just be let go in that, to be let go in the experience, free of trying to make sense of it, is how we learn the most. It comes back to not always having the answer all the time. Sometimes the answer comes to you later. Sometimes the answer is not the point. Sometimes the experience is the point, and that leads the way, that builds the foundation for you to understand the answer when it's presented to you. Again, we are not the wisest beings on this planet. We're just not. So experience the experience and build yourself up to be prepared to receive the answers. Sometimes you've got to get real with yourself, and your highest self is your best guide, is your best mentor. But you got to create the space to be in the unknown in order to connect with that higher version of yourself, or the higher version of other people, or the wisdom of nature, the wisdom of life, the wisdom of God. Another thing I learned, I think I have a problem with conflict. I need to learn how to share my own opinions without fear of how others will perceive me. I feel like I broke a lot of my people pleaser habits when I was in Costa Rica, especially living in a community where, shit's going to hit the fan every now and then. You're going to get into altercations with people. You're going to rub people the wrong way, and people are going to rub you the wrong way. But to be able to share your own opinion from a place of love and respect while maintaining who you are in those conversations is so important. And I found myself constantly biting my tongue or molding my thoughts and opinions to protect the feelings of other people, or quite honestly, to be liked by other people. I have recently noticed just how often I do mold my feelings about miscellaneous situations to fit the vibe of the person that I might be confronting or even interacting with. And although I always stick true to my values, I think that I need to learn to communicate my thoughts and feelings from a place of confidence and transparency when appropriate and beneficial, of course. Sometimes you don't need to share your opinion, right? But when you do share your opinion, make sure that it's true to who you are, and release the need to be accepted and perceived in this beautiful, shining, radiant light by everyone. Because you don't perceive everyone in that light. And if you were perceived by everyone in that light, it's probably a tell-all that you're not being authentic, that you're not being who you are. Because if you're constantly changing your approach or your feelings or your ideas or your opinions about a situation, you might be pleasing other people, but you're not being true to yourself. And the most important person to stay true to is who you are. So as I've realized all of these things, I am actively integrating all of these practices into my life as it is now. Now that I'm back stateside, I'm in Michigan, and I'm with people who knew me before Costa Rica and know my personality as it was before I left. And and still know who I am, because I do believe that I am a person who I'm going to show up. Like, I'm going to show up how I am. And even though I might have a problem with conflict and try to protect people's feelings, or sometimes mold the way that I communicate to avoid some of that conflict, I do show up as myself. You're going to get what you're going to get. And I might try to make you like it, but not everybody is going to like it, because there's this degree of who I am that, I'm loud, I'm kind of obnoxious sometimes, I'm pretty opinionated, and any of my friends will echo that. But very, very important to stay true to who you are, and I'm still continuing to integrate that. So these are some of my downloads and some of the lessons and things that I experienced in Costa Rica that I feel a lot of people can relate to. Maybe not because of the same experience, but because of different experiences and different circumstances, that we're all doing life for the first time, at least in this form. So I think we all have a lot more to connect about and in regards to than we think we do. And so the more that I show up authentic, the more that I think I can truly connect with other people and what we're going through. So this episode isn't to get you to do something. This episode is not to get you to shift your mindset. This episode is not to get you to be anything other than what you are right now, and be real with how you're feeling and with your mindset as it is. And I am curious to hear if any of you guys resonate with any of the things that I shared today, if you have any stories or experiences that led you to similar revelations, and share them with me, please, because these are the kind of conversations that I want to have. Like, if I'm going to be on this podcast, I want to talk about real shit that other people are going through. Not just leaders, not just business owners, not just health fanatics, people. Real ass people. Because we're all human beings. And despite our pursuits, we often tend to struggle with very similar things. So this new season of Crucial Conversations is going to be all about that authenticity. And I'm still going to release episodes about leadership and about productivity and about spirituality and about connection and communication and ways to improve all of those areas of your life, because I think it's very important. And those are stimulating conversations that when I'm in my flow state. I love speaking. I really love it. And I love creating a space for connection. And so I'm going to continue to do that, but from an increased presence of authenticity and of service to others. Because I want to be of service. I don't want to be doing this for myself. Like, I want to be doing something that is going to actually benefit the greater portion of society. I play a role in it, but I am not it. And I want to give back in a way that I am able to be of service to those that need it. We all need it. We all need it. And I think the basis of service is genuine relationship, heart, and connection. So that's what we own from now on. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you next time. Please stick around in the future for more episodes like this. And like I said, share your experiences with me. I can't wait to hear them. Thanks, guys. Hey, y'all. Before you head out, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode, and most importantly, thank you for making the conscious decision to invest in yourself and expand your mind. By doing so, you are helping to elevate us all to live better lives. By showing up and emulating the things that you learned in today's crucial conversation, you are inspiring those around you. If you want to continue this domino effect, share this episode with someone that you want to help to unlock their maximum potential. And connect with me on Instagram at @GabbyRosleyCo to share your valuable feedback and offer recommendations for what you'd like to hear in future episodes. I love you all. Keep shining your unique lights, and I will see you next time on the Crucial Conversations podcast.